The whole Steve Vai thing, after Philip did the gig for a while, there was another bass player you may have heard of named Billy Sheehan who started doing that gig.
I've heard of
And
him, yeah.
yeah, and so I'm thinking, well, I'm never going to get this gig, so whatever. Anyway, I hear through the grapevine that in 2007, Steve Vai is putting together a new band. And so I wrote to Steve, and I said to Steve, by this time I had done work with him in an orchestra, in the Metropole Orchestra in Holland. We did some live gigs together.
I've seen it,
I'd recorded with him on a couple of studio tracks for his album, The Ultrazone. And, we had done some stuff together, but I'd never toured with him in his rock band.
Yeah.
So I said, Steve, I hear you're, putting a new band together. I'd love to, get a crack at that. And he says to me, Bryan, I love how you play, and I know how you play, but I just want to see what else is out there.
Dude.
I was just like, crushed. Now pause on this whole timeline thing. In 2005, when I had this moment where my friend passed away, I did a lot of personal work, and I learned a lot of things about myself, and adopted a few different views of the world. And I don't want to go full on into that, but I will just say that I learned that, I was spending a lot of time in my own head and not really listening to what was going on around me.
Yeah.
Spending a lot of time being kind of angsty as opposed to being grateful. And I just kind of adopted a more, positive metaphysical view of the world.
Yeah.
And when I looked back on that first audition, and I thought to myself, what was it that I didn't do? I realized what it was in retrospect. I was really trying to prove to Steve that I could do the gig. Like, I was there, like, look, Steve, I can do this. Well, that's great. How are you going to get hired if you can't do the gig? That gets lost in this, like, desire to prove and show that the decision, being able to do the gig is like the very ground floor,
Yeah.
But it's so easy to get tripped out in your own head about, like, oh, I've got to do this right. I've got to show them I can do it, especially in complicated instrumental music world.
Absolutely.
So I thought to myself, oh, I wasn't listening. I was listening to this. I wasn't listening to this.
Yeah.
So anyway, he says that, and I thought to myself, okay, well, I don't want to, like, flip out or anything. I'll just keep the door open and stay positive and see what happens. So I told him, listen, that's cool. If you change your mind, I'm here. Just let me know. I can fly back to LA. Well, it was maybe a month or two later, I heard that the auditions were open auditions. Anybody could go. So I wrote him again, and I said, Steve, I hear you're having open auditions for your band. Can I be a part of that? And he said, Bryan, listen, I love and know how you play. It's all, believe me, but I just want to see what else is out there. Now I'm like, but I was like, all right, well, okay, just if you change your mind, I can be there soon. I'm really trying to keep an open mind. So I'm hustling around Nashville. I'm doing my thing. I got a session here, a rehearsal there. And I know the auditions are going on. I'm not really thinking about it because I'm just busy doing other stuff. I get a call, and it's Steve. I'm like, hi. He's like, hi, how's it going? I'm like, it's going pretty good. How's it going out there? He goes, not so good. Can you be here the day after tomorrow? And I'm like, yes, I can. He's like, well, there's 2 songs for the audition. One of them is called The Crying Machine. Do you know it? And I said, well, yeah, I do, because it was one of the audition pieces from like 11 years ago. Yeah. And so he goes, the other song's called Freak Show Excess. Do you know it? And I said, no. He said, can you learn it? And, this is my core thing, learning songs by ear. I'm like, yeah, sure, I can learn it. So I go listen to it, and it's like 7.5 minutes of, like, really, really difficult stuff.
Yeah.
There's one part that it's so weird I don't even know what it is, and that never happens to me. So I'm sitting there playing everything. I'm working on myself. Like, don't get hung up on this one little bit. Just proving that you can do it. Just go there, play music, listen, be open, and take what you get. So I went there, 2 days later, got on a plane, connected. Hour after I get off the plane, I'm in the audition room. I'm playing with him. We played the first song. It went great. We played the second song. Went fairly well. It got to that part I didn't know. Totally botched it. Whatever, we all laughed. And then we jammed for like 10 minutes. And, like, that was the real audition.
Yeah.
And I thought it went fairly well. But, I don't want to assume anything. So after the audition's over, Steve goes, well...
Were you nervous at this point?
Really wasn't. This time I wasn't.
You weren't?
No, I wasn't. I just was trying to just relax and just be there.
Yeah.
Thinking he knows how I play already. Either he's going to take me or he's not. So after it's over, he goes, let me, you're great. You always sound great. Give me a little time to think about it. So I went out to lunch with a friend of mine. 3 hours later, I get a call, and it's him. And he's like, well, Bryan, I got some news for you. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, there were a lot of really great people who auditioned today. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, but you were the best one. You want to be in my band? So, you know, this whole story and this now 25-minute story is all to say, you know, at that point I was 36 years old, and I was basically starting over in my career as a musician.
Yeah. And
that was kind of ground zero. I thought it was going to be in Nashville, but it turns out that it all happened in Los Angeles. I just didn't live there anymore.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I can't prove it like I can, like, you know, prove that this is a chair that I'm sitting on. But it all depends on what your definition of reality is, and that's a whole other conversation. But I would just assert that the difference between my second audition and my first audition was the way that I approached it, you know, from a listening standpoint.
So not so much a playing standpoint, but more of a psychological standpoint.
A being standpoint. I was just more relaxed. I had 11 years more life experience. I had that whole thing that happened with the business stuff at SWR, which really taught me a lot of life lessons. And, you know, that stuff all accumulated and ended up counting for something. And I know that's difficult. You know, some people just pop out of the womb and they're just ready for life, you know, and they have a certain kind of maturity. I wasn't one of those people. I needed more time, you know. So I'm very, very grateful that I got the chance to do what I did. And so then after the Steve Vai thing, the Dethklok gig happened soon after that. Yeah. And then, you know, then a couple years after that, you know, the Aristocrats started. And that's a whole other story, although that's been told many times, you know, online already. And then 2 years later, it was Joe Satriani and the Aristocrats were happening at the same time.
So that whole thing started the ball rolling, and then it just sort of like grew.
That's
from
right.
There.
That's right. So, you know, now I will tell you that, like, even though I got the Steve Vai gig in 2007, I did manage to get my second solo album out in 2008. It wasn't until 2013 that I really became financially viable. I was making a living, you know, hand to mouth and just making it work every month, but like there wasn't anything left over at the end of the day. And it was only a couple years ago that, like, you know, everything finally started to click, and I could, like, you know, not worry if they were going to take the furniture away in 3 months. So, you know, I'm a 43-year-old overnight success.